everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am back at it again with this crazy glittery makeup. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. But today I am here with about 13 underrated YA fantasy, paranormal, science fiction, dystopian books. Basically any book that is YA that is not contemporary. So if you do want underrated YA contemporary recommendations, I will definitely link that video up in the cards above. But basically what I've been doing with these underrated videos is that I go on my Goodreads and my read shelf, and then I sort them by number of ratings, and I go with the books that have the lowest amount of ratings that I think more people should read. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first book that I want to talk about is The Stars and the Blackness Between Them by Junauta Petrus. This book has 3,147 ratings as I am filming this video. So this is mostly a contemporary story, but there is magical realism involved, so that's why I'm including it on this list. Now, some of you may already know, I've talked about this, I feel like, quite a bit on my channel recently. I'm not usually into magical realism. It's something that usually my mind can't quite compute, but for some reason the way it was done in this book was just really stunning and beautiful. But just to tell you a little bit about this story, we have our two main characters. One is Audra. She is from Trinidad, but she ends up getting sent to the US, specifically Minneapolis, to live with her father. And her father is best friends with the parents of this other girl named Mabel, who is from the United States. And so the two of them quickly become friends. It also is a sapphic romance. It is just stunning. I mean, the cover alone should tell you everything you need to know about this book. But yeah, the magical realism in this is really cool and interesting, and it just fits their story really well. I wish that more people would read this. Next book I want to recommend is Where Dreams Descend by Janella Angelis. This is book 1, and I believe a YA fantasy duology. So this one is kind of like The Phantom of the Opera meets Moulin Rouge, and it's everything. I did not expect to enjoy this as much as I did. I gave it 4.5 stars. But just to tell you a little bit about what's going on in this story, we have our main character Kalia. She lives and works at this club that this man Jack runs. He's definitely the Phantom-like character. He's very controlling of her. But she is a magician as well. They're both magicians, and she wants to enter this magical competition in the city nearby, but he doesn't want her to leave at all. Like I said, he's very controlling. He wants her to himself, but she ends up escaping to the city and enters this magical competition. But in reality, women aren't typically allowed to compete in this. And so she worms her way into the competition. We have our other main character, DeMarco, who is a very young magician who is now retired, I think. I don't think he really practices magic anymore, but he's one of the judges for the competition. And so there is a sort of complicated love triangle going on between Jack, Kalia, and DeMarco. I thought this was a very intriguing world that this takes place in. I really liked the magic system. This ended on a really interesting cliffhanger that you will not see coming, I promise you. I thought the love triangle was really well done. Usually in YA stories, love triangles kind of make me roll my eyes, but in this instance, I actually really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to reading the sequel soon. So yes, definitely recommend this one. This one has 4,964 ratings as I am filming this video. Next book I'm gonna recommend is The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg. So this one has 6,346 ratings. So this is a YA sci-fi kind of dystopian book. Takes place at this Disney World-like theme park, where instead of regular humans playing the princesses and other characters and all of that, they have robots to play those characters. And so our main character is Anna. She plays one of the like Disney-like princesses in the park. And this is kind of a very typical dystopian story. She discovers that things aren't what they seem, and she seems to feel things differently from the other robots that live and work in this park. There's a romance with this guy Owen, who is a human, and he works at the park as well. I enjoyed this overall. I gave it 3.5 stars. The concept is really cool. There are some kind of tropey things going on, but I do recommend checking it out for yourself because it's just such an interesting world and premise. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you might suspect this little duology to show up on this list, and that is the Wolf by Wolf duology by Ryan Groudon. So this is a series that has 2 full novels and a novella. So the first book is Wolf by Wolf, then we have a novella called Iron to Iron, and then the second book is Blood for Blood. Just to give you an idea of the ratings, Wolf by Wolf by far has the most amount of ratings. It has 19,310. Then Iron to Iron, the novella, only has 1,517, which is crazy to me because I feel like the novella is actually really important to understanding the full scope of the story. And then Blood for Blood, the final book, has 7,478 ratings. Again, that's just crazy to me because, like, how can you read this first book and not want to read the other 2? Like, I just don't understand it because of the cliffhanger ending that we have going on with this one, but whatever. Let's talk about the premise here. So we have our main character Yael. This takes place in an alternate universe in 1956. This is a world where the Axis powers, meaning Germany and Japan, won World War II. And to celebrate the victory of the Axis powers, every year there is this ginormous motorcycle race that is held. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Hunger Games because you have to be between the ages of 12 and 17, and you have to be either German or Japanese to enter. And so this motorcycle race spans from Berlin, which is now known as Germania, and you swoop all the way through into Africa, into India, you know, Asia, and then all the way up through to Tokyo, Japan. It's absolutely insane. That's thousands and thousands of miles, right? And so we have our main character Yael. She is Jewish, and when she was 6 years old, she was put into a concentration camp with her mother. She was experimented upon with this serum that made her into a skin shifter. And so now she is working for a resistance type force that is trying to take down the Axis powers. And so she poses as one of the racers in the race so that she can hopefully win it and get close enough to Hitler to kill him herself. It is so freaking iconic. Like, one of my top favorite books of 2020, like this entire little duology slash trilogy, whatever you want to call it. Like, it's just so freaking amazing. I need to read more from Ryan Groudon because all of her books just have such like original premises or storylines. Like, it's just they all sound so amazing. So yes, like, please read these books. Next book I want to talk about is Slay by Brittany Morris. This one has 9,737 ratings. I know that you might be thinking this is a YA contemporary, and you are right about that, but hear me out. There's a reason I'm including this on this list. We have our main character Kiera. She is by day an honors student, a math tutor, one of the only Black kids at Jefferson Academy, the high school that she goes to, but by night she is the creator and owner of this incredible online game called Slay. It is a Nubian themed kind of card game, dueling game, however you want to word it. It's also a virtual reality game, and because of this amazing, fantastical, incredible game, that is why I'm including this on this list. Like I said, I know it's technically a contemporary, but to me there are portions that read very much like a fantasy novel or like a science fiction novel. I cannot wait to read more from Brittany Morris. She actually just recently released her sophomore novel, so I cannot wait to get to that soon. You need to read this. Okay, this is literally one of my favorite books of all time. I never shut up about it, especially around Christmas time, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it is The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. This is a YA retelling of A Christmas Carol, essentially, with a sci-fi kind of fantastical twist to it as well. This one has 13,322 ratings. I've read it twice at this point. The second time I read it, it made me cry. It's just so freaking good. I'll tell you the basic premise though. It's about our main character, Holly. She's 16 years old. She's kind of the worst. The ghosts of past, present, and future visit her on Christmas Eve. She doesn't listen to them. She ends up dying in a car accident and ends up working for Project Scrooge, which is this company that chooses a Scrooge every year to try to reform with the ghosts of past, present, and future. And it's just, it's so good. Like, please people, read this. this coming Christmas. Like, I promise you'll enjoy it. I mean, at least I hope you will. You may not love it as much as I do, but like, it's just so freaking amazing. Next book I want to talk about is one that really took me by surprise, and I'll get to why in a second, but that is The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. So this is a YA sci-fi story. This one has 13,865 ratings, and so this one is about our main character Romy. She's the only surviving crew member on a spaceship that is bound for a new planet. And so she is the loneliest girl in the universe until she hears that a second spaceship has launched from Earth with a single passenger on board, a boy named Jay. So I went into this thinking that it was going to be like a sweet love story set in space, maybe with some thriller elements, but like nothing too crazy. And boy, was I wrong. Oh my goodness. I'm not going to spoil what kind of book this is, but just know that it's quite a bit different from what I thought it was going to be. And I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I thought it was so freaking good. Kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. Like, it's so good. And I wish that more people would read it, because I just think it's such a well done YA sci-fi standalone book. Next is a book that I'm surprised has such few ratings given who the author is, and that is Catwoman Soulstealer by Sarah J. Maas. So this book only has 17,879 ratings. To me, that is a very low amount of ratings considering that it's Sarah J. Maas. I mean, look at all of the other books that that woman has written. Like, I'm sure they've got thousands and thousands of ratings. And I do think that's because it's technically a part of the DC Icon series, but all of these books are standalones. So essentially this is a series of books that are all written by different authors. Like, we have Leigh Bardugo wrote a Wonder Woman book, we have Marie Lu wrote a Batman book, and then there's a couple of other books in the series, I think. But this one is specifically about Catwoman, Selena Kyle. And this is just such a fun story and so like action-packed and amazing. Ugh, so good. So we've got Selena Kyle, we get her origin story as to how she becomes Catwoman. She eventually joins forces with both Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. It's amazing. And then they all end up going head to head with Luke, who is Batwing. And there's also a romance between Selena and Luke. It's just such a cool story. I low-key wish that this was its own series, like Sarah J. Maas would write a Catwoman series. I know that some people didn't really like what she did with Selena's character. I personally really enjoyed it. I didn't really have a problem with it, but do know that as far as I know, her characterization is not all that close to the comics. At least I don't think so. But yeah, I ended up giving this 4.5 stars as well. Also, there's a romance in this story between Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. Just wanted to throw that out there in case you needed more of an incentive to pick up this book. Next is a book that has a decent enough amount of ratings, but it's a book that I don't really hear that many people talking about, and that is Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. So this is a book that takes place in an alternate universe during the Civil War where there's zombies. As if the Civil War wasn't enough, right? In this world, there is the Negro and Native Re-Education Act that requires certain children to attend combat schools to learn how to put down the dead. That alone sounds so believable to me. Like, that sounds like that could have really actually happened. That people of color would have been responsible for taking down zombies. Like, wow. This is book one in a duology. I did not continue with the second book because I do think that this book overall is a little too slow paced for my liking. However, I really enjoyed the characters and the story overall and the direction that it went in. It's a very unique book in my opinion. I highly recommend checking it out yourself. By the way, Dread Nation has 25,505 ratings as I'm filming this. And then the very last book that I want to talk about is Hunted by Megan Spooner. My goodness, this is the shiniest book ever. This one has 25,637 ratings. Again, this one has a decent amount of ratings for sure, but it's a book that I don't really hear that many people talking about. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I know that some of us are getting tired of that at this point. I know that I've read so many Beauty and the Beast retellings at this point that I'm getting a little tired of it. However, this is a YA story, YA fantasy, of course. And I do think that this brings something a bit unique to the Beauty and the Beast story that we all know and love. I really liked that the Beast character stayed a beast throughout most of this book, and the romance wasn't really introduced at all until the very end. And I thought that that was a very interesting difference, because most of the time you see in these retellings that the romance starts pretty early on and develops from there. But I liked that it started with them being truly enemies and then kind of begrudgingly becoming friends, and then by the end we see true inklings of a romance. All right guys, that's going to be it for underrated YA fantasy, paranormal, sci-fi, dystopian books that I really enjoy, that I think a lot of you guys would enjoy as well. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below telling me about some of your favorite underrated YA books, whether they be contemporary fantasy, what have you. I always love getting recommendations from you guys. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do. And with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!